What is up, my Pro Design Builder family? I'm Sam, also known as the Pro Design Builder. I'm the best in the business, and it's not even close. In today's training, we're going to be going over the 5 stages of a development deal. All right, so there's this saying, how you do anything is how you do everything, and there can't be a more true statement than what the statement I just made. So we're going to be going into the 5 stages of a real estate development deal and peel back the onions step by step. A little bit about me. My name is Sam. Obviously, I go by the Pro Design Builder. I've been a design build general contractor for the last 9 years. So, from concept to completion, I'm the single point of contact from architect to concept to designer to permits to construction. I handle everything in house, and there's a specific reason for that because there's timing, there's sequencing, there's also knowing every little detail that's in the project. Very important stuff, especially when you're dealing with architects. I've had many experiences dealing with architects where you just don't have all the information when it comes to code, when it comes to planning. Why do they want to live like that? There's so many things, details that are very important in executing on a plan. So that has given me a in-depth background in project planning and project execution. So a little bit about me. I got started in this business by accident, right? So my wife, my fiance at the time, I told her, hey, if you get into med school, we'll get engaged, right? And that's exactly what happened. But right before she was supposed to go to med school in the islands, she wrote me a letter and she said that she didn't want to go, right? So obviously that rattled me. And one of the things that I said to her is, if you're going to stay, what are you going to do, right? And then she said to me, why don't we look into real estate? So she handed me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I tore through that book. The book really spoke to me in a way that I've never seen anything speak to me before. And then there was a conference, a 3 day conference after that I went to. Right. So after that conference, it really got my juices flowing for real estate. But it took one more conference for me to really start executing and taking what I call messy action. And I was green as an investor. Started out as a wholesaler, and I didn't even know my contracts. I didn't know anything anything really. But I had a friend named Mike that worked at the title company that I could call, right? And I would call him up and say, hey, listen, what do I put on the escrow line? And he'll say, hey, Sam, don't put zero on the escrow line because that's initially what I heard that you could do, right? So put $100, put $10, put something in escrow on the escrow line. What do I do with the initials and stuff like that? And he literally walked me through my first deal because he was handling the title work. So he was going to make sure that the paperwork was good because there was some incentive in there for him. But that's what messy action looks like, right? And I guess in that in that instance, he was my guide. And then from there, when I became a house flipper on my first deal, I hired a contractor. I fired a contractor. I hired a contractor. I fired a contractor. And then on my third contractor, I realized that this business had contractor problems, and I was probably never going to be happy in this business unless I was executing on the projects. And that's what I started doing. All right, I started learning. I started using YouTube, kind of like a lot of people, and it really taught me a lot. And I started executing at a high level. And obviously, through time, the projects grew, into structural changes to homes and stuff like that. And I got really good at getting in and out of projects. As a matter of fact, I created a system for investors where all they had to do is come on the front side and then come on the back side to closing, and I would handle everything from there. So finding the projects, material selections, design, everything that I do now in design build, but obviously it's at a higher level now. I started then for investors, and then all I needed them to do was bring the money and close, and then I would handle the rest. So from there, I met my buddy Josh, which I went to high school with, and a friend told me that Josh was a developer. Right, I had the itch to do more. I wanted to do more, but I didn't know where to turn. So I reached out to Josh. Josh was doing massive deals, and he was a developer out of Manhattan. So I flew up to Manhattan and met him in his office, a 20-something floor office. I just remember looking out into New York City, and then I asked him the question, how did you get started as a developer? Right. And he told me, he said, I was an assistant to this big developer for a couple years. And then I decided to go out on my own. And then from there, I started doing deals. I put a small group together of 10 people, and I did my first deal, and everybody made money. And that's how I got started. Right. And I remember saying to him specifically that I heard his story, understood that was probably not going to be my story. I didn't have a big network of people that really had money to get me a deal off the ground. So I said, I'm going to attack it through construction. And that's exactly what I did. Right. So I met my partner, Don. Don had built over 150, no, 650 homes, right? And he really got me going in the business. And then I met another mentor named Jeff that really taught me the importance of having the right system. He told me it's a system that gets you to that custom home. It's a system that gets you to that duplex, triplex, and gets you through that paperwork and gets you through the design, etc. Right? And then that really created the framework of what the pro design builder is truly about. I flew out to see Jeff and see his machine. At the time he was doing about $12 million a year. Sat in every meeting, took all the notes. I was a sponge. I was a student, and it really taught me so much about the business that I really didn't know and understand. And then from there, I started to implement every single thing that I learned, and I grew from there. Right, I was able to represent developers and build for them. Represent the developer as a broker. I've been on all sides of the table, so that was a really important experience for me moving forward. But enough about me. So let's dive into the training. So today we're going to be learning about the 5 stages of real estate development. All right. So if you don't understand the full life cycle of a project, is where the trouble begins for you. So you're gonna get stuck, right? And I don't want anybody to get stuck. So that's why I'm doing this specific training. So the first stage of a development project is the deal sourcing and the selection, right? So some of the things that are important for you to know is zoning. All right, what is it zoned? All right, is it zoned R1, which is single family detached? That's one property. All right, is it zone R2, which is a higher density, and you're looking at multifamily? So you're probably looking at a duplex or a two family. Or is it zoned R3, which is higher density than that, where you're looking at potentially triplex, fourplex, and maybe a 6 to 12 unit apartment building, right? So this zoning aspect is going to be very important for me to understand exactly what is the capacity for this particular lot, right? And then we go into lot size, right? So lot size, what are the setbacks, right? Setbacks are going to be important for you to know. Is the sides are going to be smaller than the front and the back, right? So the front may be 25-foot setback. That means that the property needs to begin no closer than 25 feet from the street, right? So those things are going to be important, right? So another thing that's important too, especially in South Florida, is what's called pervious to impervious calculations, right? So when you get into high density areas like South Florida this is very important. So pervious means that rain could penetrate the soil, which is grass, which is soil, which is also gravel, right? Why is that important, right? The pervious to impervious calculation is going to tell you how much house you can build on that particular lot, right? So if they have a 40% pervious versus a 60% impervious, that means 60% of that lot can be house, which is the concrete structure and the roof, right? So these things are very important in understanding that. And this is where most investors really mess up at, and they don't know the full capacity of that particular lot. And this is the way you need to be thinking moving forward, right? Also, location demands, right? What are the comps in the area? Can you get the price per square foot that you're looking for to exit? Also, what is the absorption rate, right? So how quickly are units selling? Are they at 6 months of a threshold? Are they at 9 months? Are they closer to a year? If they're closer to a year, then hey, guess what? It's going to be hard for you to sell that particular house, even though that the house is new. If there's that much inventory on the market and the absorption rate is close to a year, most of the times the indicators around 9 months that tells you that, hey, it's pretty high of an absorption rate, right? And then also too, utilities availability, right? Does it have city water? Does it have electric near it? Do you need to do a well? All of these factors are going to be important in understanding what the capacity is of that site, right? So you don't make money when you build, you make money when you buy, right? And you need to, this is tried and true, all right? Every single time. You don't make money when you build, you make money when you buy. And it's the same thing too when you're flipping real estate. You don't make it when you sell, you make it when you buy. If you bought it right, then you have more options and it will eventually sell. All right. So big common mistakes, buying without understanding what you can actually build on that particular lot is a massive mistake for new developers. All right. So stage two, we talk about feasibility and due diligence. This is where you validate the deal, right? And you really get into the meat and potatoes of the deal to see if the deal actually works, right? So you analyze the site first, and then now you're doing a feasibility study inside of your due diligence, right? So zoning confirmation with the city, doing a feasibility study, preliminary design, what can fit on the lot, what can't, how much house can I build, very important. Getting my budget estimates for my hard and soft costs, something I say all the time, sticks and bricks, and then timeline projections. All of this is telling me the whole story of the project. Now, is this project going to be a home run? Is it going to be a base hit? The reality is we're not looking for base hits, all right? That's what house flipping is for. Base hits. We're looking for a home run. It have to make sense on paper, right? If it doesn't work on paper, it doesn't work in real life. That's the reality of it. And here's a common mistake, which is skipping this step and relying on assumptions. I talk about this. I've had a situation where I walked into a project with a lot of assumptions, right? And at the end of that project, I end up going over budget by 15%, which cost me about $40,000, right? Now that number really affected, my profit margin on the exit, is because I walked in with assumptions and everything ended up costing way more, right? So a game changer for me was a book called Markup and Profit. It's specifically a book for contractors that talks about the importance of having the right markup and literally what happens when you don't have the right markup and then how you end up going out of business. But anyways, the book said the tried and true method is if something costs more than $500, you should get a formal quote. All right. Nothing more important than that, especially in the different environments that I'm in right now with price increases and stuff like that. Getting that formal quote and then locking in the price when you get it is absolutely important in your execution if you ever want to make this transition the right way, right? So skipping this step and relying on assumption is a absolutely massive mistake, right? So stage three, which is financing and having the right capital stack. This is where your deal either moves forward or it dies, right? It has to make sense to the bank. It has to make sense to your lenders. It has to make sense to other investors that are part of this project. So some of the things that you need to know and understand, right? Which is the construction loan, right? Are you using bank or are you using private money? All right, what is that money going to cost you on a monthly basis or annual basis? These are the things that are going to be important, and seeing exactly where your profit lies. So equity, your money investment into the deal. Obviously, some investors want to see you have some skin in the game. That's absolutely important. Clear capital structure. Who gets paid when and why, right? So key components. So loan to cost ratio, uh, interest reserve, developer's fee, and then profit split, right? You don't need all the money. You just have to have the right structure on the deal, right? So one of the big mistakes that you could make is not having enough liquidity for your project. Absolutely massive mistake, right? And I've done it, right? I've done it on many occasions where I didn't have the right liquidity. And guess what happens? I had to go back to my investor partner and to ask for more money, right? So what happens in a situation like that when you go back to your investor partner and you have to ask more money, right? What happens is you begin to look like you didn't have the right assumptions. You don't fully know what you're doing, even though that's not the case, right? But they begin to lose faith or trust in you in the planning process. Are you not looking and forecasting out into the future? You don't want to be in that position, right? You want your investor to be happy. You go to the table with them. Hey, listen, this is what this project is going to cost. You made your assumptions on the front side. You made your selections, and then now you have your liquidity there just for any escalating cost in the project. Absolutely important, right? You don't want to make that mistake. Stage four, which is your execution and construction, right? I would say this is where your systems are truly tested, and this is where your project can truly fail, right? And let's go through some of the components that are involved in situation like this, right? So I told you about myself hiring, firing the contractors, right? So nothing is going to be more important, and I will stress this, than hiring your GC or hiring your builder. And there's multiple ways to work with the builder to make sure that the execution happens in a timely manner. And it first starts with the interview process, right? But I'm not going to get into that right now. So hiring the right GC or builder, managing the timeline and schedule, staying on track, right? So here's the thing. Anytime your project goes over the schedule, is going to cost you more money, right? So there's more money on the interest and more money on material. It's going to just cost you more money. I remember sitting in on a PhD lecture that talked about cost overruns in constructions and how it happens and what it costs you in labor and material and interest and stuff like that. It was eye popping, right? So I'm a stickler for schedule. I'm a stickler for knowing and preparing in advance to not have the project go over on the timeline, right? And then also to draw requests from the bank. When do you do it? Having the right milestones and payment schedule attached to that to your builder. I know a lot of people, a lot of gurus, they say, you could do it yourself. Can you? You can, right? That's the reality. But the reality is, does the bank feel more secure with having a builder or developer that has done it multiple times? Absolutely, right? But yes, you can do it as a owner builder, and I could definitely show you that as well. And then having the right inspections and quality control on what you're delivering, absolutely important, right? This is not about swinging hammers. It's about managing people, process, and the money, right? So it's all a project management game, right? And having the right project management and execution will allow you to deliver the home in a timely fashion, right? So poor management delays equals cost overruns, like I said, which is a big common mistake in executing on your projects moving forward, right? So then let's talk about stage 5, right? It's the final stage, which is the exit strategy. You should know your exit strategy before you start. Absolutely important. All right. Are you going to sell the home? Are you going to refinance and hold it? Are you going to build to rent? What are you doing on the front side? What is the plan? Right. You don't want to have a plan later. So that means that interest is going out the door. You want to execute on the plan right away. Ideally, in any market, you want to be able to sell the home right away because that's when you recoup all of your money and all of your efforts. Now, if you want to buy and hold, that is a very different strategy and very different loan process. But you have to have those thoughts and those calculations done up front. And it also makes you look better and it makes your lender understand what your plans are with this particular build, right? So here's what matters. All right, market timing definitely matters. You got to think about it like this: you're not making this investment or building this building for today's price, right? You're looking 2 years in advance, 3 years in advance, sometimes 5 years into the future to say, hey, this is where I expect it to be, and here's the assumptions made based on this investment, right? So pricing strategy, having the right pricing strategy on how you're going to sell it quickly. Buyer demand, what are the buyers looking for? Having the right avatar and building for that specific avatar, absolutely important. And here's the key lessons is developers don't guess on exit, they plan for it, right? Absolutely important. All right, so building without an understanding of what the end buyer is looking for is probably one of the biggest mistakes, and I've made that myself. So I wanna spare you. I wanna save you from that mistake because it does get stressful when you're holding onto a project and you have to make those interest payments on a monthly basis because you didn't plan correctly for that particular buyer to buy that home and alleviate the stress, right? So let's bring it all together. So when you look at development the right way, it's not overwhelming, right? It's a system, it's a structure, right? It's a sequence of steps that you need to take to be able to execute on it, right? So find the right deal, validate the deal, structure the money, execute on the build, and having the right exit plan. All of these things is a sequence, and all these things are is a system, I should say, right? So if you haven't already, make sure you hit like and subscribe so I could bring more content for you like this. If you ever wanted to work with me or my team, click developer or put developer in the comment section and I'll make sure that I reach out to you. Outside of that, have a great day.